And I see a live ticker up at the top. I'm going to give everybody a second to roll in. Let everybody kind of just come in. Welcome, 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 everybody. I just imagine so many friendly faces filing in, unsure of where to sit in the audience. It's okay. You can sit near the front of the room. That'd be really nice. I'd appreciate it so I could look everybody in the eye. And I'm just going to start when we'll get into it in just a minute. So, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today to hang out and talk about MaxFun becoming a co-op, Co-Optober. It's been so much fun to say that I say it as much as I possibly can. You can feel free to say hello in the YouTube chat. We have people that are checking out your comments there. And also, if you're going to have questions, that's the whole reason why we're here. If you've got them, we'd love to answer them. I think we'll all do our best to answer them as best we can. We're kind of going to keep it to questions about the co-op, but if you just want to know generally some stuff about MaxFun, I think we'll probably have some time for that too. We're going to be here for an hour. In case you did not know or did not see my name at the bottom of the screen, my name is Julian Burrell, and if that name sounds familiar to you at all, it's probably because you're familiar with the JV Club with Janet Varney, Go Fact Yourself, or all podcasts that I produce here at Maximum Fun. And more pertinently to today's conversation, I am also a worker owner here at the MaxFun Network. And that also brings me to introduce our panel for today. I'm going to introduce them all from our board of directors. We have Stacey Molski, who handles a ton of things on the business end for the co-op, and we're going to be getting into a lot of that today, I'm sure. Stacey, hello.
Hello.
It's great to see you again. And we also have Bikram Chatterji, leader of all things business, finance, and strategy.
Hello. Great to be here.
Again, Bikram.
Strategy rhymes with Chatterji, and that only occurred to me right now, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm pretty sure.
Well,
that's
clearly
why
my
we chose this
branding
career,
initiative has not been working.
We are also going to be joined by Gabe Mara, also on the board of directors. He's wrapping up a podcast right now. Would you believe it? A podcast recording here at Maximum Fun. But and that just speaks to us always working hard, and in addition to doing extra fun stuff like this. So we hope we're going to see Gabe shortly. We're going to get going with the assumption that he'll be able to join us once he can. But in the meantime, I'm going to go around to Stacey and then Bikram and ask you guys about your roles here at Maximum Fun, and also what you guys are doing now as part of the board of directors. So Stacey, why don't you tell us what you've been doing and what you are doing now as of MaxFun becoming a co-op?
Sure. So I have been here for a while, about 8 years now. I've done a lot of stuff on the business side, basically like anything that's not actually making a podcast. Like I've probably done a little bit of it over the time. Right now I'm the director of business operations. I do a little bit of like marketing communication stuff still, but we do have CN working in communications now, which is very exciting. I am on the board, and our starting board was the folks who were on the team that helped us figure out how to transition to a co-op. So there's like a team of 5 of us that worked with our partners at Project Equity. So I was on that team, and their suggestion was, hey, you probably want to start a board with this team because these are the folks who've been thinking about this for like 2 years. And that way we can roll in new people and train new people and get new voices and thoughts in there. But on the board, I am going to be the treasurer. So I'm not like the bookkeeper for the business. I am just sort of there to, get reports, make sure like the co-op is spending money in the way that we expect and that everything is going well, just sort of keeping an eye on everything. But no, I'm not actually like, we have a bookkeeper. I am not doing that part, thankfully.
Do you have a room inside of your apartment which is full of money that you can just dive into as the treasurer? I understand that was very important.
Yeah,
the
that
Scrooge McDuck ability was.
I had to Scrooge it. Yeah, it's just the one door you can see. I got rid of the bedroom.
And something else fun about Stacey is she and I actually just got back from a couple weeks ago from a music festival. We were both at Lost Evenings, and we had a grand old time. Stacey, did you have fun as well?
I had a great time. Yeah. I'm fairly certain I got COVID from it, but I had a great time. Well, doing good now.
It's like, isn't that just like the fun? You have to just like, what fun thing did I do, and did I get COVID?
Right. Well, like you got to take the risk of like, is it worth it? And it was worth it.
We had great. A grand time. We were both us along with our partners very much hanging out in the back with our masks on, doing our best to stay safe the entire time. But we still did have a lot of fun, and it's great to have you here, Stacey. Yeah. Bikram, why don't you tell us about what you've been doing, along with how much has changed since we became a co-op? Because I'm actually curious about this myself. And Gabe, welcome. We're going to get to you in just a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good to be here. I am the CEO of Maximum Fun Media Cooperative Corp, which is the name of MaxFun now. And I've been with MaxFun since 2016. And previously I was the managing director. Now I'm the CEO. Nothing really fundamentally has changed about my role. But that role is basically to oversee and manage the day-to-day operations of the company, weigh in on big decisions, make some decisions myself, and newly, as part of the cooperative, to work with the board of directors on any bigger picture strategy ideas. If there's a really big decision that we have to make about where to put our resources or what to focus on, that's all going to be in consultation with the board from here on out. I am currently a member of the board because I was also, as Stacey mentioned, a member of the team that helped plan the co-op. But my term is up at the end of December, which is pretty cool. We're gonna turn over a couple of the seats on the board to new members, and really that is. In my case, it's partially because the board is supposed to oversee me, and I probably shouldn't be overseeing myself. But more broadly,
as Bikram, I think that Bikram is doing a great job.
Yeah, exactly. But more broadly, it's because the whole principle of the co-op is to empower workers to have a stake and a say in what happens at the company, and we wanted to do that as soon as possible. So we're going to have elections amongst the worker owners for that to fill those seats, and they'll be choosing a few of the seats, and going forward the board will have elections to periodically involve more people in the co-op's long-term strategy and planning.
Exactly. Now, I don't want anybody to think that Bikram is just somebody who's here to look at bottom line stuff. He's never having any fun, and he's just keeping us all from buying boats that we can go race around in MacArthur Park Lake. This man is also has a wonderful story of how he found one of his dogs at MaxFunHQ. Is that correct? I understand that there was a dog out there and he needed a home, and boy, Bikram did not give that dog a home.
Yeah. So how do I screen share? How do I get some photos on here?
I say just hold up your iPhone.
It was actually our senior producer, Laura Swisher, who one day on her lunch break went around to MacArthur Park and took a walk and found a little tiny dog who had clearly been on the street for a little while. She was pretty dirty. She was pretty thin. And Laura befriended her, which in retrospect is an accomplishment. She is not a friendly dog. But
I mean, she's
Laura must have been giving on some really good vibes, or had something that was really tasty. And Laura brought the dog back to our office. My wife and I had been looking for a dog. We'd actually visited a shelter the prior week to try to find somebody to bring home, and it just so happened that timing worked out incredibly well. And so we now have.
I don't know.
Was that a different dog, or was that Momo?
That was not. I don't.
Okay.
That
was one of mine.
Dave, that was yours. Yeah.
If it was Momo, that would have been pretty great.
I would, yeah.
But Bikram, I am very glad that the dog distribution system of the universe did find its way to you, and I think that we're all a little bit better for it, very much. And now we are going to chat with Mr. Gabe Mara. He is also on the production team along with me. So Gabe, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do at MaxFun and what you do now that MaxFun is a co-op?
Great. Hi, Julian. Hi, Bikram. Hi, Stacey. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had first a minor dog crisis, and then I had a minor recording crisis. My Fridays going awesome. So I produce 2 podcasts here at MaxFun. I produce One Bad Mother, our parenting show, and I also produce Depression Mode of John Moe, our mental health podcast. I've been here a couple of years now. It's a great time, and I've been recruited into basically the transition team to help make this whole thing happen. The whole co-op. It's pretty great. I came in as the bit of the newbies, the rebel. I came in with my leather jacket and asked very strange questions. It was really cool. So I'm really excited about being part of this co-op. I'm basically the secretary of the group. I write down notes. I extensively write down notes, and I keep track of these things. I'm pretty pumped about making sure that we can all contribute and make sure that all of us have a say and all of us, make the whole yard better.
Absolutely, and I don't mean to sell Gabe short when I call into when I bring up Bikram's wonderful love of dogs, because Gabe might actually be a friend to many dogs here in the Los Angeles area. I feel like every other week on Slack we are getting a new image of a dog that he is fostering. Gabe, how many fosters are in your care at this very moment?
Oh, only one at this very moment.
Okay,
But I also have
just the one.
so I have one. His name is.
He loses track of their names, so he gives them name
Yes.
tags. I understand.
Pretty much. Here's one of them. Here's the one. This is Archie.
Oh, Archie.
Archie is such a sweet boy. He is
What a famous
wonderful.
boy now.
He's my current foster. I had one who looked exactly like him like a month ago, and we named him Alfie. So, we really like 60s media, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, this is like I've lost count, honestly. He's maybe like my 15th foster dog, which is
Wow.
pretty great.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, I like it's been 15 crying sessions of giving up a new dog, but it's lovely. He's really
Aw.
great. I my permanent dog is a foster fail. His name's Buggy. He's a sweet boy. He's right there below me. And right now we have a towering
We will
beagle.
trust that Buggy is not an imaginary dog that gave him.
No, he's also not a pirate clown. He's just a great guy. He's been a great foster brother. It's been pretty wonderful. And I have a beagle that I'm sitting. His name is Roscoe. He's very strong.
Look at this. I love how he tried to pass this off as I just have one before revealing up, and here are the other ones that are
Yeah, I said
not
juggling them.
fostering. We they hang out in an entire room of the house. He's a friend
Yes.
of dogs everywhere. He's a friend to all of us as well. Gabe Mara, it is great to have you here.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna go right into some questions. That's the whole reason why we're having this. I know, frankly, co-op is not a word that I've heard thrown around a lot before we started this venture, and I certainly had never heard it much in the media space, as far as the workers having a stake in the place that they work. So if you have questions, please just throw them into comments. We've got people perusing there who are going to put them on our list of questions to get to. If they're especially great, I will throw you to the top of the list. So if you get them really good, that's your motivation to make sure that you get your question asked earlier. So let's actually start with a few questions that we had, because we actually started a few threads over on Reddit, and we got some really great ones from everybody, and we really appreciate that. This was actually one that I was very curious about when we embarked on this. How does this change the way the decisions are made at this company? Bikram, I think you have the biggest insight as far as how decisions were made as this company, because a lot of the times we were, we were reacting to decisions on our end versus debating them and talking about the best solution. So please, I welcome your insight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big change is any big decision that is made by management goes to the board, and the board weighs in on it. And any real big decision that we are making would go to the member owners, the worker owners of Maximum Fun. So, big decisions, something that might go to the board is if we are investing in a new show, and we would talk about that at the board level, and I would have to get board support to do that. Larger decisions are if we wanted to move locations, if we wanted to change where our offices are, that would go to all the worker owners. I think one of the really interesting things for me about this whole process has been thinking about that balance between like if you come from a business background, you are taught that like decision making is the most important thing, and you really need to be agile, and you really need to be able to make decisions really quickly. And that is the conventional wisdom. I think that wisdom is taken to a ridiculous extreme in most businesses these days. But I think there is some truth to it. And I think what this does is it sort of strikes that balance between, okay, let's be responsive. Let's make sure that somebody can quickly act on changes in the marketplace, but let's also make sure that like the people who are going to be most impacted by those changes have either a way of weighing in on those decisions directly, if they go to the board or if they go to the worker owners, or frankly, a way of exerting pressure on the decision maker by firing me if I make the wrong decision, which is another part of the board of directors oversight of management.
Now we're talking board of directors. I believe that's a total of five people, right? And
Yes.
And then so we have the 5 people who make up the board of directors, and then we also have when we're talking about worker owners, I believe we're at 20 worker owners who have decided to take on the responsibility, the burden, the great honor, whatever you want to call it. So that represents, I think, the vast majority of MaxFun as far as people who work here and get and collect paychecks here and full-time workers. So that just gives you a little bit of perspective as far as how many people are involved in a lot of this stuff as we continue to do all this. Now, we did have. Now I'm noticing everybody hanging out here in the chat. Like, you guys are having great conversations about weather, and those of you where it's not 90 degrees right now, I'm incredibly jealous. So stop talking about that and maybe ask me some questions, because it makes me feel really, really terrible every time I see a nice sunny day of 64 degrees in Vancouver, because I am currently dying here in LA. But we also have a question. We have a question here from Beardo PNW. Pacific Northwest, shout out. I've been contemplating how to start a co-op. The thing that feels daunting is not feeling like I have the business skills and figuring out how splitting responsibilities can work. Well, I would like to go to either Stacey or Gabe, since neither of you, I think, would characterize yourself as business folks prior to this happening.
Yeah.
So Stacey, we'll go with you first, and then Gabe, you can chime in on anything right after that.
Sure. Yeah, it is very funny that the word business is in my title, because I studied art history and theater. I don't have an MBA. I have learned things as I've gone. I've just learned about our community and our network, and I like learning. I think that helps. I think as long as you like learning, there are resources out there. Like, we were very lucky to partner with Project Equity. David is actually in the chat right now. David is who helped us.
Shouts to
through
David
it.
from Park.
Hi, David.
Yeah, Project Equity.
Hey.
It means a lot for you to join us.
There are other things out there too that aren't, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of workshops, there's just a whole lot of documentation that you can go read and learn about it on your own time. And a lot of it you can do without actually like investing the money yet, just to find out more about it. I really have enjoyed learning everything through this process. Like, that was maybe my favorite part of being on the transition team, was like learning about it, thinking about it, getting together with these other people who like also really care about the same things I care about, and figure out how to do this in the way that's going to work best for everybody in our company who also cares about very similar things. So there are a lot of resources out there. We're going to be sharing more actually next week. Next week, we're going to be talking to some other folks at other co-ops, and several of them have used different things throughout their process. So be sure to check out like those blogs. But there's a lot out there. And yeah, as far as splitting responsibilities, that's just, you just have to make sure that like the folks that you work with are engaged in it in the same way you are, because it is going to wind up being work. And as long as everybody's on the same page about working towards the same goal, like you'll figure it out. That was an abrupt ending, but that was apparently all I had to say.
Gabe, why don't you go ahead and add anything that you wanted to add?
Sure. No, not to echo Stacey, but really it was impressive how many resources there are out there that, I didn't think we were going to be hopping in blind, but, the day we learned about this, I bought a book about what the history of co-ops. I didn't end up using it, but I found it very charming. Um, it is absolutely daunting. It is definitely a lot to learn, a lot to look up, and it's like all great endeavors. I think it was absolutely worth it. It's been a long road that I don't think you should let the fear of all that you have to do really stop you. I think it's a really wonderful process. I think that where Max Fun is absolutely better for it. That, if Bikram was the Voltron head, now we're all the legs and the arms, and we're one big Voltron now. Splitting responsibilities, I think I agree with Stacey, obviously. The interesting thing is that you just want to make sure that everybody's invested in it. That if you want to start a co-op by yourself, then that's just the business, I think. But if you have people that want to be part of your company, who want to share in your company and want to be with you on this boat, I think that they're going to be with you. The whole idea is to spread out guidance, basically. Stretch out navigation. It's a long road. I mean, obviously there's some co-ops that just like snap into existence and it's great, smooth sailing. Our road was a little bit choppy, but we're here and we didn't give up, and I'm very proud of where we've gone.
I was always more of a Power Rangers kid growing up.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is Roscoe, by the way.
The whole Roscoe.
Oh man,
Roscoe.
look at Roscoe.
Look at him.
Roscoe
stealing
does
the
not
show.
like what's happening right now.
No. He's a good dude.
I would honestly also add that the biggest thing you can do is just be willing to learn a lot. Like I don't think anybody will go into something like this knowing everything. So just understand that, just that you can learn anything. There's lots of people that have done it before that will be willing to share their experience, and you kind of become a little bit of a network of wider co-ops that people will also be willing to share their insight into as well. So let's go actually to another question that's in the chat. I notice a few people rolling in right now. If you guys want to ask really cool questions about the co-op, we would love to hear them. N Striker asks us, you mentioned workers don't have to be worker owners. What is the practical difference? Who feels comfortable speaking to this one?
Good one.
I can take it. So yeah, and we actually published some of the principles of co-ops, of the international co-op. Stacey, what was it? The international co-op principles?
Yes. Yeah. Seven of them.
Seven of them. One of which is that membership or worker ownership is voluntary. So it is voluntary. The people who have chosen to become worker owners will contribute a modest capital contribution, and that's not really to like fund the business in any meaningful way, but it is meant to be represent a financial commitment to the co-op in some way. And we've engineered that amount to be something that is attainable but like feels substantial. And then as a result of that, you become a worker owner of the business, and you're entitled to, as I was mentioning before, vote on major issues before the co-op, elect board members, and participate in any sort of committees that we have to govern certain parts of the business. And you're also entitled to what is called basically profit sharing. So if the co-op does really well, the owners of the business, represented by the worker owners, will get to share in some of that success. It is totally okay to be a MaxFun employee and not be a worker owner. And, there are some folks who have chosen to do that. I think what we were trying to do as a team in sort of setting up the co-op is to try to make both situations work for people, and make it clear that becoming a worker owner of Maximum Fun does come with a lot of privileges, but it is also a responsibility that you're taking on, which is the truth for any type of business ownership.
Yeah, and that can doesn't. It's not intended to make it sound like a scary thing that's going to be incredibly difficult and add a lot of burden to your life, but it is a reality of what it takes to make something like this successful and make something that's built to last, not just built for us to, collect money for a number of years. We actually want this. We all of us who took on the worker owner label and bought in are genuinely invested in. Yes, I know. Thank you for the agreement. Are genuinely invested in making sure that that this place is going to be a thing for as long as humanly possible. Thank you so much for that question there. This is actually a fun
How
one.
much pie do you want? Do you want
Yeah.
to make more pie? Do you want to add more pie? Do you want to be part
Yeah.
of the pie? Do you want to say
Did
part
you
of the
put-
pie is yours?
Did you bring that money into the pie? I hope you did, because then you can buy into it. No. This is actually a fun one from Not a Sandwich, and it's actually been a topic of conversation over the last month as we've put merch together that you guys that MaxFun members can go get. When talking about the co-op, are you ever tempted to call it a coop, pronounced like the name of a chicken house?
Oh, I can take that one.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. It has not ended. Honestly, it started out as maybe like a funny joke, then it became an old joke, and then it kind of circled back around to being funny and like an absurdist wheel. It's co-op. Maybe we'll find a new one to do. The coup. We
Stacey,
haven't done
I
a
think
coup
you're
yet.
muted.
I feel like we genuinely had part of a meeting where we were like, all right, are we going to use this hyphen or what? We're going to always use a hyphen. I feel like we got to always use a hyphen. And like, even when we were naming Co-Optober, we definitely were like, all right, how do we okay, got to get the hyphen off the cap, it is funny how we're just like, we have to make sure it's pronounced co-op.
Oh, in addition, we had that weird deal where a lot of our business model revolves around having members. So we had to work out which one of us are worker owners, worker employees, and who are our MaxFun members. So that was an additional, dance we had to do.
Yeah, that's been a big one since it already means something in our community. But it is the word that you'll see used out there. Like you'll see members being used by other co-ops all the time.
We just, we were had the interesting dilemma of like having a lot of this stuff baked into what we were doing for a very long time and needing to find ways around that to make it distinct and memorable and clear for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is making sure that the t-shirts look good. So this is actually a question. Let's go to a quick question from David Gray. When you tell people you're an owner at a worker co-op, what misconceptions do people have? I almost said coop, and that's a misconception people have, is that I work with chickens. So yeah, what misconceptions would you say have you heard as we've kind of explained this? Because I actually do have a few, and I would love to hear you guys if you have any.
I've definitely had people who just don't know much about it. I think it's a sort of unusual thing. So I've gotten a lot of how does that work? Did you buy the business with your own money? And no, I didn't. We did not have to just pool our own money to buy the business. I thought that came up kind of often. That's not really how it works. So that was when I had to squash. But mostly people were just like, how does that work? They didn't have the initial knowledge of it beforehand to really have too many misconceptions.
Right. And we've one thing I think that Stacey you'll know about is that there are all sorts of co-ops out there. I think you and I have both gone shopping at REI before, which is a consumer co-op. Any outdoorsy, climby people out there, you guys would know the same thing. Then there's some. Then I think the biggest one that I get whenever I tell people it's a co-op is that I don't think that they completely understand what it means to be a part of a worker outfit that is not just somebody owns it and then distributes paychecks by the end of it. Especially right now. I mean, I don't know how many people are looking at the news right now, but podcasting, it is not it is not a great sight. I feel like every other week I get a headline that says due to advertising shortfall 15% of people just lost their jobs at this company the other day. It's just that's really scary. And I think that was one of the things that appealed to a lot of us was that we would have a say in things like this. It wouldn't just be because of budgeting. It wouldn't be because we wouldn't lose our jobs because, I don't know, the CEO decided that they wanted to get into YouTube or get into TV shows or something, and there was no money in podcasting anymore. So yeah, I think
fear blew up in my eyes.
I mean, one day. No, just kidding. Not right now. Never. Any other insights? Any other fun confusions that you've gotten? Whether it's chickens or it's podcasting or it's telling people we work at a co-op.
I think Stacey covered that. That a lot of it is just not knowing what a co-op even is. You hear about grocery co-ops. I mean, as a media co-op, we're a fairly new idea. It's just kind of like what Decoder did and what we're doing now. We're a new kind of bird, and with Amazon and all these other companies scooping up companies and cannibalizing themselves, it is just really great that we get to have a say in our future. I think that's part of the really good thing being an owner of a co-op. That, I mean, we can fire ourselves, but we probably won't.
Yeah, I think one for me, and Julian, you mentioned that there are all kinds of co-ops. There's also all these different kinds of co-op structures. So like there is a co-op structure where basically every decision is made by the collective workers and owners of the business, and in some cases those have to be unanimous decisions. So like there is this interesting spectrum of where co-ops can land, and I think a question that I've heard both from some of our business partners who have a stake in this and from other people is like, oh, okay, so does like every decision from the company have to be approved by everybody who works at the company now? And we've talked a little bit about decision making and why that particular model is not one that we chose to embrace. But like that model is out there. It is interesting when people sort of hear how we strike that balance between like, okay, let's make sure that we can operate quickly enough and be responsive to the marketplace, while also making sure that everybody who's an owner of this business is able to have the necessary say and the necessary influence over the broad direction of the business.
No, and I'm going to go to another question in just a second. I just want to put everything out to everybody who's rolling in right now. We're answering questions mainly about the co-op. We know a lot of people are very curious because this is our first ever. God, how many months have we been going into this? And this is our first ever kind of public facing event where we're kind of trying to make sure that we answer a lot of the questions, because we are an outfit that has not only been powered by worker owners, but has also been powered by MaxFun members and our listening public as well. So we would love to get your guys' questions that come in with what it means for us to become a co-op, what it means for what we're going to be doing differently versus what we have been doing, gosh, over for however many years that we've all been working here beforehand. I'm going to go to a question here from, let me make sure I get this right, Allie Littlelegs. Are all the board members worker owners, or are there outside folks too? This is a pretty simple yes or no answer. So who would like to say it? Would you like 1, 2, 3, everybody all at once?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to be all the board owners are worker owners, not vice versa. That
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be on the board, you have to be a worker owner. To be a voting member on the board, you
Yes.
have to be a
Correct.
worker owner, because you're voted in by your fellow worker owners, and you're representing them.
Absolutely. And that's just a lot of that is that comes down to, I mean, just logistically, practically, logically, it just we need people who are directly invested in the idea of in the co-op to be the ones who are hearing the most meetings on how things are going to go in the long term and everything.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Beardo PNW, constantly making me jealous that they're in the Pacific Northwest where it's not 90 degrees. Are non-worker owners full-time W-2 employees? Does a worker co-op affect how you work with contractors? 1099. Oh my goodness, taxes. Oh my God. I'm not supposed to worry about this for months. Sorry if this is way off in the weeds. It's not way off in the weeds, Beardo. Gabe, I think you're talking, but you're muted, buddy.
That's a great question. Honestly, that's a lot to consider when putting forth in this whole kind of endeavor. I mean, yes, it's very different. It's all the different structures. That again, like you don't have to be you have to be full time to be a member of the co-op. But if you don't want to be a part of the co-op, then you don't have to be. You could be your own employee. We always have freelancers. We're still a company, but when it comes down to contractors and such, I might pass it off to Bikram, but it's not necessarily like a co-op is still a functioning business, and we're not black holing different people to pay our dues and such. That's a very good question when it comes down to taxes. We have a lot of frameworks for that.
Yeah. And Bikram, you had to deal with a lot of people coming and working with us for a little while, so I'm very curious about your perspective on this.
Yeah, so the answer is it does not affect anybody who's on a 1099 with us. And there's a variety of suppliers who we work with and partners who we work with on that. But this change doesn't affect that in any way. It really only impacts W-2 workers and folks who are, as Gabe was mentioning, full-time employees. So, part of the logic for that, and at this initial stage, is that, the folks who have in some way dedicated their careers to being at MaxFun for the time being, are the ones who can adopt the responsibility and the privileges of ownership. So that's kind of how we have thought about it so far. There are other models out there with different classes of ownership. So there's, in the tech world, these are like Class A shareholders are the only people who can vote, and Class B shareholders only have economic participation, but they can't vote, and things like that. So there is some flexibility for stuff like that in the future, if the co-op decides that's the direction they want to take in terms of expanding the ownership and the classes of ownership of MaxFun. But initially, we thought it was best as a group of people designing the co-op to keep it as simple as possible and ensure continuity with what we've already built up. So, the changes right now are primarily the ones that impact the employees of MaxFun and not anybody else.
Absolutely. It is, for us who are working behind the scenes and everything, it's I feel like, again, we're learning everything as we keep going, and we keep finding out new things every day. And I hope you guys are learning things too as we keep going, because we got a nice comment from Jonesy, either swords or S words, because it's lowercase s capital words. I super appreciate the space for this conversation, especially as so many folks are looking for more options for business models. And this will lead into a question that I'm going to ask, but I thought that was a very nice message. Thank you, Jonesy. Doing our best. I hope that I would love for more of these to spring up over the next decade or so, as as the turbulent times within the industry abroad just kind of finally start settling out, and maybe people start thinking maybe there's a better way. I would like to be a beacon for that, and I know I think I could speak for everybody on the panel here that they feel the same way. And that leads into another question that we got earlier. There are a ton of layoffs at podcast companies right now. How does that industry risk feel to you as owners of a podcast network? It's a bit of an elephant in the room.
I
Gabe,
can start
you want
on
to
that
go
one.
first? Yeah.
Yeah. I know, Julian, you can also chime in as a part of the production team. I feel, I don't know, it's much more secure for me as a member of the production that you and I, we're sailors, that our skill set is involved in hopping from company to company. We produce shows, we're producers. So it's a daunting time. It really is. It's kind of scary, but I feel when it comes down to, like what I said earlier, that we get to be owners of the company, and we get to sail our own boat here, basically. That it is alarming to see where all the podcasts, all the buying in of companies and such are going down, but we get to control where we want to go. I feel much more secure as a member of MaxFun, as a worker owner, that we're not going to shutter down tomorrow because Jeff Bezos bought us. It's a lot of security, and it's also a lot of autonomy, and I think that's a privilege of being a co-op owner.
Yes, indeed.
Can I
Please
chime in on something? I do very much keep up to date on what's going on in the industry, as you would have expected. And I've thought a lot about how this move sort of changes the relationship between quote unquote management, like between the bosses like me and the people who work at the company.
Solid flex.
Um, and I feel like one of the things I love about this is it allows me to be totally transparent with the people who work here about where the business is, where the challenges are, what our strategy is going forward, uh, you know, and where I'm coming at it as one of the leaders at the organization, both so that everybody is aware of what's going on. I feel like a lot of what has happened in the industry that has been heartbreaking to see is folks being laid off initially as a shock and subsequently in further and further rounds of layoffs as like a sense of the inevitable axe swinging that has finally come from them. Like I I cannot put myself in that situation of feeling like, oh, the industry is tanking and therefore my job is in jeopardy. And then also, uh, for a lot of those people to not have had any insight into what happened and the decisions that were made along the way that have led us to the state that we're in. Um, I am super grateful that MaxFun is stable and making money now. I will not pretend that the vanishing of a large portion of the advertising market didn't affect us. It did. Um, I'm super grateful to all of the members out there who have kept our finances relatively stable in what has been just a apocalyptic time for many, many people who do what we do. But like more than anything in the context of the co-op, I am so thankful that I'm just able to talk with my coworkers about what is going on in a really real way. And I have an obligation to do that because they're not only my coworkers, they are co-owners of the business with me, and they need to understand and have taken on the responsibility of understanding like how the world works for us now and what we're going to do about it to continue to grow and thrive into the future.
Here, here. And yeah, I'm just speaking to everything that you said. I mean, like I knew people that worked other places where they were making objective gains and were doing everything that they were being told to do as far as their job was concerned, and going above and beyond in terms of like bringing in new listeners, bringing in, making shows that were popular that people wanted to listen to. And then their thank you was, getting laid off by the end of it because, hey, sorry, we're going in a different direction. Like that's I don't know, that's a scary thought that you can do everything right and still, you can suffer consequences for that. And I feel more secure here than I do than I ever have anywhere else that I've worked. And I feel, I don't know, we've talked a little bit about the fear of it, but there also is something to like the empowerment to it as well, I think. And that's something that I think we're going to continue to carry with us for a while here. Now, I actually had a really good question here from Bradley Jackson, getting right back to things. Was there any internal resistance to the concept of transitioning to a worker owned co op? And if so, how did you approach the conversation? Was there any educational campaign leading to this transition? Now, I remember all of us were in the room when we were first told about this. It was our first in-person meeting. Stacey, why don't you tell us what the temperature of the room was when we were first getting approached with this by Jesse?
Yeah, so we had an in-person meeting during, I don't know, sometimes during, we were still definitely not back at the office at all, but it was like, this is important enough to be in person. My mind, I went, Jesse's selling the company. Here we go. We're going to find out he's selling the company. Because it just like had this big vibe. And then finally to hear him start talking, you were like, oh, he's not selling the company, but he is like doing this new cool thing that I didn't even know was possible. So I think there were a lot of questions in the beginning. I don't know how many people, I don't know everybody's like internal thoughts when it first happened, but I think there was just a lot of trying to gain that knowledge in the beginning of like, how does this work exactly? And then from there, I think the five of us, the people on the transition team, got a lot of education as we went through to try and make certain decisions. And so we tried to have these smaller meetings with groups of employees while we were just trying to help them make their decision, where we answered everybody's questions about, whatever they were worried about or what they didn't quite understand. And we tried to like get some of that information out there so that people could make a decision as informed as possible. before they, opted into joining.
Whereas I was like, not Spotify, not serious. Okay, cool, we're going. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember getting like a lot of strong resistance, more just curiosity and trying to get some questions answered.
Yeah. Gabe, were you going to say something about how you were feeling when you first heard about this?
Oh, I was one of the newest employees when I came in. That I was terrified that, I just come in from a freelance position. I was like, great, this is an exciting endeavor. And I was really, really thankful that I was part of the transition team, that Bikram called me up and he said, hey, we need we need all sorts of skills and, membership levels here, employment levels here. So it was that meeting looked kind of bleak, like it was brick walls. And yeah, but we have basically been working all together to make this whole transition as easy as possible for everybody. That I'm really looking forward to putting together all the educational components. So people who aren't, I'm very thrilled that people want to be part of the board. That we can, that once me and Stacey leave in like a year, 6 months, that people are going to be champing at the bit to be like running the company. I think that's very exciting. And the more education we can put through to everybody, the more everybody can be at the same like experience level as us. That's only great news.
And that is that's the only way a co-op works, is if you get as many people to buy in as possible. It cannot just be the same 3 people holding long-term positions over the company, because that, I don't know, if it feels like a co-op in name only at that point, if it's just like one person staying with a really, really long term as president. So yeah, we look forward to getting as many perspectives rolling in, as many people getting involved in this as possible, and it's going to be really, really great. A follow-up question from Bradley Jackson is, how did you make sure that the transition to worker owners was equitable? Equitable. Bikram, do you feel comfortable taking this? Because I'm kind of parsing words when I think of that last word there.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it in a direction, and maybe if I'm taking it in the wrong direction, Bradley, you can follow up. But I think, one of the thoughts processes in setting up the co-op as we did and determining eligibility criteria for worker owners was explicitly to make access to that privilege and responsibility something that everybody would be able to access. So like, there's a financial commitment, but we made it modest. There is going to be a training commitment, but it is something that people can manage alongside their workload. And also to sort of set a threshold where it's not the case that a bunch of people are going to I guess to try to treat worker ownership as equitable as possible in terms of voting, in terms of profit sharing, in terms of all of the things that are the privileges of ownership, to try to make sure that stuff is as equally accessible to everyone who is a full-time worker of MaxFun, and also that the actual execution of those things are equitable. That it's not like one person is more of a worker owner than another person. So if you're a worker owner, you are a worker owner, and we try to make that as accessible as possible to everybody who works here.
Yeah, I remember having meetings of trying to figure out our membership criteria, and the main thing we all cared about was making sure that everyone could do it if they wanted to do it. We didn't want anyone to not be able to do this because of whatever, some financial thing or educational, whatever. We wanted everyone to feel comfortable joining.
And I think, given the participation rate, I'm happy to say I think we achieved that. I think the people who wanted to become worker owners were able to become worker owners, and the people who didn't were also able to do that. But it was a decision that was actively made, and on the basis of what their personal plan is, not on the basis of oh, I can't afford that or something along those lines.
I'm very proud of all the work we put into to making sure everything's equitable. That we took a lot of time to make sure that all of our planning meetings and everything, that we wanted to make sure everything was best for everybody to have. I mean, not to go back to my joke, but everybody was going to get the right amount of pie. That it's scary that it's this weird like new endeavor that we had to make sure everybody wanted to be there. And there were people who were just trying to hop in for benefits, who were just kind of trying slacking in. And some people want to be, want to take it all for themselves. But we put a lot of thought and care into making sure there's checks and balances, and there's whatever benefit we can for being a member owner at all.
And now we still have about 10 minutes to keep getting as many questions in as we can. So I actually have one that was from earlier. It's a little bit more of a nuts and bolts question, because it occurs to me that we haven't totally explained how someone becomes a worker owner. Is everyone who works at the company eligible? And I guess we can approach this from the perspective of, because I think everybody who's already been employed with the company has made the decision as far as that goes. But let's say, we hire somebody else on for a new role in the next half a year or something, and like how will they be approached about becoming a worker owner at Maximum Fun? Bikram,
Stacey, you want to do that one?
Sure. So we have a set of criteria for this. Folks who come on, we haven't had anyone new join the company since we've become a co-op, but folks who come on will be, we'll explain this to them a little bit. We'll say, think about this. You obviously don't have to make a decision now. The things that you'll have to do are go through some educational training, both about our company and about the co-op part of our company, just so you can have this sense of what's actually going on. There is a 6-month sort of waiting period, which is both for their sake, because, you don't necessarily want to become an owner of a company if you don't have the vibe of it yet. It'll 6 months for them to get used to it, see if it's something they're interested in. They don't have to do it right at that 6 months. They can wait a year, but they just can't do it earlier than that. And it helps us get to know the person and make sure that this is somebody that we would feel okay with being, an owner with us. And then once that person is yes, I'm doing this, gone through their training, they have the financial part that Bikram mentioned, which is pretty small, but makes you feel like this is a real thing and I have this, I am an owner. Then there is the rest of the worker owners also have to vote you in. So someone, maybe your manager, someone who's been working with you closely, can recommend, yes, I think this person should be a worker owner. And then everyone gets to vote on it. So hopefully we're all just going to be great, get in, you seem awesome. But there is a layer of deciding.
Thus begins the initiation process, the long and difficult, arduous journey to being a co-op worker owner.
Here's your robes.
For us, we do have it full-time workers, like we said. You do have to be a full-time worker before you can actually start that process. But we did work out a way to have it work for production fellows, because we do this production fellowship, which I'm sure you're familiar with, where we bring in folks who are maybe just starting out in audio, and it's a year-long position. Not we don't necessarily know if we'll have a position for them afterwards or not. It's really just this training experience. So we did work in a way to be okay, well, what if that person's been here for a year? They do have a position and they want to do it right away. Do they wait 6 months? And no, we have it. So their waiting period kind of is part of their production fellowship. So there's a lot of weird little things we had to think about and figure out. I think that's everything.
Yeah. I actually have a good question here for Gabe from Beardo PNW. So y'all are podcast media business. Do board members feel like they get to actually do that, or do you feel like you're spending more time doing co-op back-end work? Gabe, you've got the most experience of doing podcast stuff. I know. Has your life gotten any more boring since you became a co-op board member?
No, just more busy, more meetings to attend, more architecture to handle, but it's all worth it. As a podcast media business, we still have our separate roles. We still hire that, and in MaxFun, we basically are separated into our business aspect and a production aspect. I'm not necessarily doing Stacey's job all day, but Stacey's also not necessarily making any podcasts. So we're not, it's not a commune. But
not for us anyway.
Not for us anyway. Maybe
by
for
all
them.
means.
But, yeah, it's when it comes down to it, that it's still our investment to be part of it. That in this whole transition period, I've been doing this in addition to my work, which I was happy to do. That was part of signing on to be a member of this. But I still do my job. I still, I'm also part of the board of directors. So it's about how much investment you want to do. I still put out 2 shows every week, and I mean, a lot of the co-op work it's not terribly. I think when it comes down to managing the company, it's not terribly intensive. We have GA meetings, we have board of director meetings, and we're going to be having task forces and such. So it's we want everybody who is a worker owner to be as invested as they want to be, and hopefully you want to be invested, but you still do your nuts and bolts job every day of the week. Yes, buddy, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's a little hard for us to say because we're still so early on in the process of like getting everything set up, getting our minute book set up, getting our training set up. And the team that's been sort of who is the board now has been part of this longer transition. So for us, it has been, a good deal of extra stuff on top of our regular job to get to this point. I think going forward, it is not going to be as much of like a time-consuming process for anyone who wants to be on the board or wants to be a worker owner. I think it's just more like getting yourself into this mindset of thinking about the company in a way that maybe you wouldn't if you were, not a part owner in it. So I think it's actually going to wind up not being too bad on folks' schedules, and they'll still be able to do their actual main job of making podcasts.
Yeah. Our workload hasn't doubled or anything, if that's your basic question. That it's just more investment into what we're doing. That if you want to put like a hard number on it, I'd say that maybe it is an extra 2-3 hours a week that I'm doing, depending on what was going on. That in the whole transition, it was a little bit like that, like 3 hours an extra week, and it's not murder. It's just work I want to be doing. So, you can be a member of the co-op, and you can just be a part of it. You can vote, and you just get all your stuff done. And if you want to do more, do more.
Absolutely. Now, there was one question here that I feel like is especially pertinent. I want to make sure we get to it before we run out of time here. Is this like a union? How is this the same or different than things like the writers' strike with the SAG-AFTRA strike and everything? And I feel like we are at a very critical point of labor in the past however many decades. So that feels very interesting. How seeing what we're doing in the context of what's going on in the broader spectrum of not just podcasting but of work in general. Bikram, would you like to take that of the comparison?
Yeah. So this is not the same thing as a union. A union is a way of taking collective action. It's primarily in the context of workers taking collective action so that they have some sort of power parity with management. And management can often call the shots, but guess what? If none of the people they rely on to do the work actually will do the work, then management has to negotiate with them. So it is not a union. It is not that. In some ways, it is more extreme than that, which is like, in this case, if management, like me, wants to call the shots and the workers don't agree with that, they can make sure I don't have a job anymore. So I've thought about it a lot, especially, as we were going through this process of becoming worker owners. It was contemporaneous with a lot of the union drives at places like the Ringer and other places. And so I've thought about, how does this relate to that? And I'll be honest, there's a vast history of the relationship between co-ops and unions that I'm not deeply familiar with. So some of this is off the cuff. But for me, what resonates is like, unions are often set up as a counterbalance to management. So like the structure of a union is, we are going to fight in opposition to management. And what we are doing in a cooperative structure is, this needs to be a partnership between workers and management. Like the only way this works is if we are actively communicating all the time about the future of the business. And so in that way, like, my hope is that it results in a really good outcome for the company in the future. But yeah, it isn't the same as the union. I like it better as a member of management but but like, I hope that worker owners, and I won't speak for them. I hope that worker owners also like it better, because instead of saying like, oh, we need to hold out for this, it's like, oh, we have the power to control this. So.
Yeah, I think it's, if the vast majority of people in the company didn't want to do something that, I don't know, that Bikram did want to do, I think that we wouldn't need to go back and forth in negotiations. Chances are we just wouldn't do it. So yeah, that's like, I think that gives you a pretty good like idea of like, whereas a CEO would be like, this is my vision and you are all my pawns. That's not going to happen here. I think we're coming right up against the end of it. However, I noticed a few people rolled in. I know that if Friday's still a work day. I'm sure that if you have any questions, I'm sure we would welcome them. I think that Reddit thread is still going. We'll try to peruse it as much as we can. And it's Co-Optober. We're going to be answering questions about being a co-op all month long. So please just, if you see us on social medias, even the ones that are, the ones that I don't really like spending that much time at, I'll do my best to answer any questions. I think everybody else will be happy to answer questions as well. And I want to just go to one final comment that we had from Allie Little Legs that said, the move to a co-op had totally cemented my already quite intense love of MaxFun. It's a company whose ethos I really support, and I love that I can support you with my listening and my dollars, and that just warms my heart so much. And that's the great part about doing all this, is that we're not just doing this for each other, we're doing this for all of our listeners like you, Allie Little Legs, and it means so much that we get to spend our work days doing that.
We love you too.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without the members, so thank you.
All right, so I think that's going to about do it. We're right up at the hour. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Friday, has a great weekend, has a great rest of your Co-Optober/spooky season. It's going to be we're going to be doing a lot more fun stuff. Go support the co-op however you can. If you're a member, please go take a look at all that merch that we have. I have tried it on. It is some of the most comfortable shirts and hoodies that you could ever ask for. I really appreciate everybody being here, and it's to all of our worker owners, to Bikram, to Gabe, to Stacey. I appreciate everybody, and it is going to be so much fun spending the rest of our work lives together.
Thank you so much.
Julian.
Thanks, everyone.